May your might be respectfully praised. Ur-Nammu's universal legal pronouncements present a good example of the unifying drive of Ur's kings, the compulsion to regulate every aspect of life. It says something significant about the Ur-III state, that the ruler could override local tradition and insist on conformity to his diktat. Keeping such a tight grip on the many centrally controlled legal, economic, social, and educational systems and institutions demanded a particular Mari on the banks of the Euphrates in today's Syria, in ancient times the most distant outpost of Sumerian civilization, and a place that was believed to have once, around the 25th century BCE, exercised hegemony over all Mesopotamia. Here, the nomadic newcomers established the center of an important kingdom, where the king resided in a palace of extraordinary size and beauty. Some 300 rooms, on each of 2 stories, covered an area of 6 acres. Even after the ravages of 4,000 years, the geometrical compositions that decorated the royal quarters are still astonishingly fresh. But even more remarkable are the brightly painted tableaux of Mari life that once adorned the administration block, religious ceremonies and battle scenes in the main. Most affecting are the details in the snapshots of humbler characters, Amorites of Abraham's era. A soldier in a tight, round white helmet with attached chin-piece, wearing a cloak with gaily knotted ties around his neck, in a way not unfashionable today, rushes bravely forward into the fray, in spite of the arrows that seem to have pierced his body. A fisherman with short black hair and beard walks home glumly, though a large fish dangles from the stick over his shoulder. A sober-faced man in a black cap and formal robe leads forward a sacrificial ox, the tips of whose horns are sheathed in silver. Sadly, the heads have flaked away from the 2 women shinning up a date palm, one wearing what looks remarkably like a bikini, the other a mini-dress of revealing shortness. Perched in the tree fronds, to quote André Parot, who conducted excavations here for 40 years on behalf of the French National Museums, is a magnificent blue bird with outspread wings, ready to take flight. We had always regarded the bird as a creation of the painter's imagination, but while walking in the palace one day in April 1950, we noticed a great bird of prey almost exactly like it, which, at our approach, flew off in a panic from the ruins where it had its nest. If Terach and his family were indeed of Amorite stock and lived at this time, why would he choose to leave Sumer, where their ancestors had presumably arrived not so very long before, leaving most of his kinsmen behind, and just at the time when his fellow tribesmen were taking over the seats of Mesopotamian power? Why would he have given up life in the most advanced city on earth and go back to a tent on the steppe? And why would this detail be remembered for so long afterwards? Perhaps it was to remind us that only by leaving Ur would Terach and his little family keep their Amorite identity and their Amorite way of life, which was so important to subsequent Hebrew history. Had Terach stayed in Sumer, Abram would have shared in a very different destiny, for the Amorite conquerors proved to be quite unlike the Guti, who had brought down the Akkadians' empire and who had taken so much effort and so long to dislodge. The Amorites would never leave. They would eventually merge into the general population so thoroughly that after a few decades it would be impossible to distinguish them from their predecessors. It probably helped that they spoke languages from the same broad family as the Akkadian lingua franca of Mesopotamia. Most likely, they were simply dazzled by the extraordinary cultural wealth and richness of history they had stumbled upon, and wanted to become part of it. And, crucially, they recognized that the traditions of Sumerian civilization could be successfully continued whatever the origins of the man on the throne in the city palace. Their task was to take up the baton and carry it forward. In doing so, Amorite rulers would move the civilized and civilizing arts and sciences to new heights. Their time could be said to be the veritable golden age of Mesopotamian civilization. They would forge all the different ethnic groups into a new people, the Babylonians. Their state would be centered on a new city, Babylon.